Alright, here are the notes for section 8.4. And this section is all about sampling. And sampling is how we find out information about a whole population by asking a part of that population or just a smaller group that's part of the whole population. Okay, so you'll have to identify on your assignment what a population is and what a sample is. So a population is the whole group. So a population would be, for example, all of the seventh graders in the state of California. And a sample would be 50 of those seventh graders chosen at random throughout the state. So a sample is just a part of the group. The population is the whole entire group. Okay, so let's think about a couple questions here. Let's say you want to figure out how many seventh graders in your school play guitar. Well, in this case, assuming you don't go to a very big school, but where I work, we have a very small school, and so we could very easily ask all the seventh graders in the school if they play guitar. So here, in this case, we could just ask the whole population. Okay, so we live in California here where I work at my school, and if we wanted to figure out how many seventh graders in California play guitar, it would be impossible to ask them all. So what we would do is we would choose a random sample, a random group of seventh graders in California, and we would ask them if they played guitar, and then we would take that information from the small group and then try to estimate how many seventh graders in the whole state play guitar. So in this case, for question 2, we would need a random sample. And random means the people are chosen at random. We're not going to just go to one school and ask all the seventh graders at that school if they play guitar and then use that to determine everything about California, because California is a very diverse state. There's lots of people living here, so we would need to ask ideally seventh graders from all over the state to get a group that's representative of everybody. And so that's going to be this next part here. So the question is, what makes a good sample? Well, oops, sorry about that. The sample needs to be representative of the whole population. So it has to be a good group that is a lot like the whole population in many characteristics. Bigger is better. Okay, if you're a mathematician in the real world, you're going to have to choose a sample that's going to depend on how much money you've been given to study what you're studying. If you don't have a lot of money, you may have a smaller sample. If you have a lot of money, you may have a bigger sample. But bigger is better. And the sample should be random. And so what I have in mind here is, let's say we want to figure out how many seventh graders in the school like to sing. Let's say we're at a big school. Do you want to go to the choir class and ask the first 10 kids that show up to choir class if they like to sing? Or do you want to pick a group of kids from all around the school and ask them? So I think it's pretty obvious you'd want to pick students from all around the school, not just the ones that are going to choir class, to ask them if they like to sing, because they probably like to sing already, and they're not necessarily representative of the whole population of the school, and it's not a very random sample. We're not a random sample. A technique that you can do there is you can assign everybody a number. Okay, say there's 1,000 seventh graders in the school. That'd be a huge school. But let's say there's 1,000 of them. Then everybody would get a number from 1 to 1,000. And then you can use a computer program to say pick 50 of those numbers at random. And then those are the people you would ask about whether or not they like to sing. So we're just randomly picking people. We're not asking our friends. We're not going to a particular group. We're trying to get students from all over the school in a random way. Okay, I hope that makes sense, but you'll be asked to judge whether one sample is better than another on your assignment. So again, you want to consider these 3 things. You want to see if it represents the whole population, you want to choose one that's bigger than the other, and you want it to be randomly chosen. Okay, the last thing is that we can use samples to make educated guesses about populations. So here's an example, and we'll do this and we're going to use proportions and cross multiplying, so it's something you're already familiar with. So let's say we did a random sample of 50 12-year-olds, and we found that 19 of them chose blue as their favorite color. So let's say in our town here there's 800 12-year-olds, and we want to predict how many of them are going to choose blue as their favorite color. Well, hopefully this sounds a bit familiar. It's like I said, it's just a proportion. So looking at our sample, we've got 19 out of 50 that like blue. So 19 out of 50, this is from the sample. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to use this to make a guess about the population. So how many total 7th graders are there? Well, I'm sorry, 12-year-olds are there. Well, there's 800. So here's our population. And we want to figure out how many of them like blue, and we don't know, so I'm going to call that X. Okay? And we're just going to go ahead and solve this by cross multiplying. Okay? So 19 times 800 is, pardon me here for 1 second, is 115,200 equals X times 50 is 50X. Okay, and remember, to solve this, we divide both sides by the number in front of the variable. We're going to divide by 50. And that answer, 15,200 divided by 50 is 304. So according to what we got in our sample, we're going to make a guess about the population. We'll use a proportion to do that. And when we go ahead and solve it, we get 304 out of 800 12-year-olds in our town that like blue as their favorite color. Okay, so that is the best guess that we can make from our sample. 800 really isn't that many, and you probably could ask them all if you really had enough people and enough time. But it's much quicker to take a sample of, say, 50 12-year-olds and then use a proportion like this to make a guess about the entire population. Okay, well that should be enough to hopefully get you through section 8.4 okay, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you.